This is Dr. Charles Parker, and you're listening to Core Brain Journal. It's the place where I connect both fresh discoveries and interesting different perspectives from advanced mind science with the realities of real people and everyday life down on Main Street. Well, welcome, folks. Here we are, Dr. Charles Parker, one more time back at Core Brain Journal, and we have a very, very interesting guy here today who we've been down the same path without knowing it. And as some people might say, we're kind of two brothers from a different mother. And he is a very interesting guy. I've just so much enjoyed the warm-up talk with him, and I know you're going to enjoy it. Welcome, Aaron. Thanks for coming on board.
Dr. Parker, thank you so much. I'm very happy and grateful to be a part of your broadcast.
So this is Aaron Wayne Duke. He's from, are you up near Chicago?
We're about 2 hours southwest.
Yeah, okay. So,
but we always tell everybody from not around these neck of the woods, we're from Chicago.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a big place out there, and having been from the northern Midwest, northern Indiana, and Culver Military Academy, I know Chicago very well. But anyway, back to it. So let me introduce you, Wayne, pardon me, Aaron, and I got three names that all could be the first name, and so I'll introduce you, and then we'll really talk about that interesting material that you were talking about right at the beginning. So Aaron's a author, a motivational speaker, a Hall of Fame martial artist, and an award-winning radio broadcaster. He's got that radio voice. He sounds so good. His book, Daily Affirmations, Growing the Garden of Your Mind, is a self-help book that was inspired by his own revelations of mental programming and reprogramming, actually harking back to his childhood. So we're looking forward to hearing about Wayne's take on a lot of things, but most importantly, school bullying and bullying in general and what to do about it. We think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So let's start with where we ended as we were talking before, Aaron, and really get back to your childhood, how you got to be the way you are, and how you wrote this book. The motivation for writing the book.
Well, I like to take everybody back to the very beginning because it explains the name more than anything. People go, why is your name hyphenated? Why do you just not use Aaron Wayne, or why do you not just use Aaron Duke? And the short, long story is this. My mother married John Wayne, not the actor, but John Wayne from Alexis, Illinois in 1971. They divorced. My mother then married David Duke. So I can't make this up. My father's name is John Wayne, and my mother marries a gentleman by the name of Duke. Now, if you could put that at a Las Vegas casino, the odds of that happening, you'd make $1 million. But so that's why Aaron Wayne Duke came about. It's basically to honor my father and also my adopted stepfather. So I'm very, very happy and grateful that I was surrounded by wonderful parents and supportive parents. So that's kind of how that starts. It is me paying respect to the Wayne family and also to the Duke family, who are a very large reason for where I am today. To get to the, I think the meat and potatoes, if you will, grew up in a very small town, young, 3,000 people. Midwest, that's pretty popular because most of the towns in the Midwest are filled with small towns but great people. And at a very young age, I experienced sexual abuse, and that continued for quite a few years. And I did not really have a concept of the impact of that in my life or what it did to me. As I spoke to you before we went on the air, physically, I was able to heal pretty quickly because, those things were kind of done and over. I tell people it's kind of like, you skin your knee in a few days, all signs are gone. Your body has the ability to heal itself, and then you move on. Mentally, I was not aware of the long-lasting impact And really, I call it devastation mentally that occurred. And I say this in interviews, I've said it in seminars and even classes here at the local level at my martial arts school. It was probably 25 years of not understanding why I did what I did, why I thought what I thought, why I had the tendencies that I had, why I made the choices that I made. And the realization came that I had lost my mind. Now, I didn't, become Daffy Duck, and bouncing around like that. It wasn't that kind of losing your mind. I had lost control of the programming of my mind. My mental programming was taken over by individuals, and those seeds, those words, those phrases that were planted in what I call a very open, fertile soil. When you're a child, you will receive things much more openly because of your lack of life experience. And sadly, it took a very, I would call, just a sad event. My father passed February 1st, 2015. It was the first, truthfully, very close relationship that ended in that manner. When you lose someone, when someone dies, I really had not experienced that before. That loss, that emotional roller coaster that many people have since now, thankfully, been there to support me and help me and educate me through the process of losing a loved one. So it sent me into a spiral. And I began to really just become so sick and tired of being sick and tired of fighting depression, of fighting just whatever it was, my inability to fulfill what I really believed I could be. And that sounds like an Army commercial, be all you can be, but that's truly what it was. I had people all around me my whole life saying, oh, Aaron, you have such a great voice. You could be on your WLS. You could be a guy, you could be on WGN. And although I would hear people say that they believed that about me, the constant words and phrases in my head were, you're worthless, you're stupid. You know what I mean? It was constantly just negative programming. So thankfully, within the last, I would say, probably 15 months, there was a massive shift in my thinking. And thankfully, it was a very, very simple thing that happened. And that was I was on the internet, like so many people are nowadays, and I just started typing in, mental programming, change your mind, things like, phrases like that. What would pop up? And amazingly, Brian Tracy pops up. Ernest Nightingale pops up. You have all these wonderful people who, are just absolute fantastic speakers and wonderful motivators. And I thought, why don't I know who these people are?
Yep.
Why do all these people who I know are very successful, happy, positive people, why do they all know those names, and why are they reading these books and listening to these cassettes and videos, and why am I not one of those people? And I just began to immerse myself with anything and everything I could find. Positive thinking, positive mental imagery, anything, everything that I could possibly do. And my life began to change. And I say this in all honesty, not, weeks went by. It was days. Literally, in days, I began to feel different. I began to change. All negativity, programming-wise, ceased because I just immersed myself with positivity and positive thoughts and positive input. And it really got me thinking.
So, Aaron, let me stop you right there for just a second, because I think this is an important transition point that you're talking about. What you're saying is you had a loving family. You had a great childhood, except for the trauma that you experienced. But the trauma had wended its way into your brain, and you had repeated negative thoughts going on with yourself that actually controlled you to a point that you were regularly depressed and had a low self-esteem even until shortly after your father's death in 2015, which is a short time ago.
Absolutely. Well, the magnificent thing about our minds is just how fast things can change. We talk about, the blink of an eye or a snap of a finger. I don't understand why it clicked with me, why it became something that just seemed to work. But it was the revelation that I had already had the skills of mental imagery and positive affirmations that I had used many times as a child, but did not recognize that's what it was. I share a story in my book about being in the Little League and being 12 years old and being on the on-deck circle and watching the pitcher and I rubbing the bat and I'm taking my practice swings. And I remember it vividly that I began to say, I'm going to hit a home run. I'm going to hit a home run. This is the guy. I'm going to hit a home run. I'm going to hit a home run. And so I got up to bat. It was a 3-0 count. I looked down at my coach who was sitting at third base, and I thought he's going to tell me to take it because it's a 3-0 count. And I kind of gave him that look like, please, will you let me swing away if he throws one down the pipe, down the middle? And he looked at me and he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and, waved his hand kind of in frustration, like, I know you're going to do whatever you're going to want to do anyway. And he did. And I hit that ball over the fence, over the cars, into a garden of a house that sat there by the baseball field. And it wasn't until, getting into some of the books and materials and some of the authors and speakers that I mentioned briefly, that I realized that was positive affirmation. That was positive imagery, that I had done it. I just didn't realize that it was something I should have been doing the whole time. It could have changed my baseball career. It could have changed my academic career. It could have changed my social life. It could have changed so many things. So I had a small sense of how to do it, but I didn't know what it was, and I didn't understand the power of it.
At that time. And later on, even living your life as you were, you hadn't fully integrated it until this next traumatic moment, which was life-changing when your father died.
Absolutely. I've shared with people, the people that I've spoken to or other interviews, and they say, wow, you've now written 3 books. My last book just came out last week, and you've won awards in radio. You've been inducted to the Martial Arts Hall of Fames, and if you would have asked me even 2 years ago, I would have probably smiled and said thank you very much, but none of it meant anything to me. It didn't make me feel better. It didn't make me feel good. Although others would look at those things as, well, those are great accomplishments. You've risen to the top. You've done many things that many other people are just afraid or just not able to do. And what I began to realize was that my whole life, I was never able to enjoy anything good because I didn't believe I deserved anything good. And that was the programming that led to a lot of heartache and pain and sorrow, the ending of a marriage, truly the ending of my radio career. So when people say to me that famous phrase, Dr. Parker, that words, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me, I cringe, because nothing could be a bigger lie. Words are so powerful. They are so ingrained in our humanity. And I tell everyone, if you think for 1 second that you can ignore words, try going about your normal day, not using them and not hearing them. You will hear words from your boss. You'll hear words from your coworkers. You'll hear the radio, the television, whatever it is that you're surrounded by. And those words impact you. And we talked about that before the interview. You will either react or you will act according to the influences that you allow in your life. And as I spoke to you, the bullying situation is very, very simple to understand, but it seems like we can't get a grasp on the simplicity of it. No one bullies to build anyone up. It's derogatory, it's demeaning, it's disrespectful. That's me trying to elicit a negative response from you. And if you will not react or allow yourself to interact with negative influences, you will become one of the most powerful people that you will ever know, that you will ever meet. I hear this all the time from friends. I'm in my 40s now. They say things like, well, we graduated high school 25 years ago, and all I wanted was to meet somebody who would love me and care about me, and people are still searching. And I literally had this epiphany today. I was sitting around just watching the rain fall outside of my house, and the thought just hit me and dropped into me, and it was this. If you want to be loved like you dream and desire to be loved, love yourself that way. It's that simple. Now, I had no idea or had concept how to love myself. How do I teach my children how to love themselves? Well, the first thing is you must start programming for positivity. You must start programming for love. You must start programming for peace. You must start programming for compassion, respect.
Are you still there?
Yeah. It is imperative for anyone listening today to understand that the kids today are surrounded, because of the internet, a wonderful tool, and quite possibly one of the most dangerous things ever invented, because now people can't hide. We go to school, and we got bullied. When I was in grade school, we would get bullied on a playground. Someone would start talking to you or talking trash or making fun of you. The recess was over. You go back to class. It was pretty much done and over. They might give you dirty looks. They might even follow you home. But then you go inside and you're done. Maybe if they were really bold, they would call you on the phone, which you could just hang up. Today, kids are bombarded with Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat. We could go on and on and on. And no one seems to have the ability to just shut that off, because everybody wants to stay connected. And if kids could understand that those negative influences that are coming through on Facebook, Twitter, all those things can be controlled. They can be controlled. The people doing it cannot necessarily be controlled, but the influences can be. So parents, there's no reason that a 13-year-old child should be suffering from depression, from constant bullying. There should not be children committing suicide over bullying. There just shouldn't be. And one of the things that's so important is for them to understand the programming that their children receive from the parents, first and foremost, is very, very important. But that child has to learn and embrace programming their own mind to be in control of their own affirmations, their own self-esteem. That ends bullying today. It ends it. In a snap of a finger, when a child has control of their self-esteem and their self-worth, the bullying ends.
So what you're saying really, and I know you're saying this one way, I'm just going to say it slightly differently, but I think it's an important elaboration, and that is that self-esteem looks like it can come from the outside, like it comes through accolades and wins and appreciation and somebody saying, I love you. It looks like it comes from the outside. That's the way a lot of people think about it. But what you're saying, Aaron, is that it really does come from the outside to some degree, but it has to be internalized and has to really be felt as reality within oneself to turn off that constant barrage that might follow them home through the internet or through any kind of media connection with the people who've been bullying them.
I think we could probably both agree, if you think about something long enough, if it stays in your mind long enough, it becomes a truth. Whether it's really true or not, your mind accepts what you constantly meditate on, what you constantly allow to stay there. So if someone is hearing you're ugly, you're stupid, you're fat, and that's all they hear, their mind will begin to transition, whether they want to believe it or not. Their mind will go, for me, for instance, it was, gosh, am I stupid? This person continues to call me. You start doubting it. Am I stupid? Wait, and then it becomes, am I stupid? To I must be stupid. So see, we begin to accept that programming because we do not have the self-esteem or the self-worth to knowingly reject that which is not true, that which is negative.
Becomes an internal reality.
Absolutely.
So this is a key question. Now we're down to a really important point because, and we were talking about this before, but what does one do? And this is going to be, I'm sure, in your book. I haven't had the privilege of reading your book, but it's so much fun talking to you. I'm definitely going to charge right into it because your message is a very, very important message for so many out there, not just kids, but for adults as well, who may be 40 years old and a radio announcer or whatever, and haven't integrated fully exactly what you're talking about here.
Well, it's quite embarrassing to be a grown adult and to realize that you have poor self-esteem, and to be in an industry like martial arts where people say, I need to sign up my children because I want them to build their self-esteem. So there was a point where I began to feel like a fraud. There's a interesting book by a gentleman by the name of John Graydon, who's very well known in the martial arts world, and it's called The Imposter Syndrome. And it's basically one of those, kind of situations where people are just fake it till you make it. But there's a syndrome that is a very popular, that people are afraid that they're going to be found out. Paul Newman famously mentioned that he, even though all of his success as an actor, still struggled with the thought that someone was going to sneak up on him one day, tap him on the shoulder, and say, Newman, we found you out. You need to go back and paint houses. So it's not one of those things where it's just, I call it normal people. There are a lot of entertainers. There are a lot of very successful people who truthfully don't have great self-esteem.
It's true. It's very true.
And people don't want to believe that. But I think we could do this as a topical question. The great musician and philanthropist Prince recently died. And there is, of course, wide speculation about the cause of his death. And we can only speculate. I didn't know him. You didn't know him. But there are now people coming forward saying that he suffered tremendous stage fright, that he was terribly insecure about his height. So see, you can be worth $750 million. You can sell 100 million records. You can be an icon and in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and still wake up and there'll be things about you that cause you to do things that you don't need to do if you only were secure and had that self-esteem. Now, I'm not saying that Prince didn't have self-esteem, but what I'm saying is that we all have a common struggle. It is a common struggle with men and women of all ages, all backgrounds, all societies, that we look in the mirror and see something we don't like. Oh, I wish I had more hair. I wish I had less hair. And there are some things that we can change physically. We can exercise more. We can watch our diet. But those are outward manifestations. So we can say things like, wow, Dr. Parker, you look great. You look like you've lost some weight. What's going on? And mentally, you can still be struggling. So you go to the gym, you work out, you come home, and you still don't feel good. Your body looks good. People are complimenting you, but on the inside, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm stupid. So I think the most important thing that I have discovered, and I don't think that I discovered it, but what I discovered for me is just the two words, I am. Not I want to be, not I think, not I hope, not I wish, not I pray. I am. And those two words have been so powerful for me. So powerful for me to change my life. And it needed changing. Because when I began to embrace positive, personal, and present tense speaking in my life, that's when the change occurred. You know, oh my gosh, traffic looks like it's going to be horrible today. Got to stop that, Aaron. I am certain that traffic's going to be terrific. I am certain I'm going to have a great day today. I am so happy and grateful that I get to interact with Dr. Parker today. That was one of the things I said on the way in, driving my truck from the farmhouse today, was just coming in saying, I'm so happy and so grateful that I get to interact with Dr. Parker today. I'm so happy and grateful for this opportunity. And what that does is it just makes you excited. It makes you realize that you do have worth. You have something worth sharing. Your story matters. Everyone's story matters. So personal, positive, present tense phrases have such power. And I talk about that in my book. And for me, that was the discovery, Dr. Parker, when I began to say things like, I am happy. I am excited. I am energetic. I am smart. That's not a phrase I'd ever said before until 43 years of age. And that is almost a tragedy to admit that. I had never said to myself, you are a handsome man. I had never looked in the mirror ever once and said that anything positive about myself. Anytime I walked by the mirror as a child, as junior in high school, getting ready for the prom, I looked in the mirror and I would say, you stupid, ugly, whatever it was. Why would anyone want to go out on this date with you? Why would anyone want to go to this dance with you? And it makes me emotional to think about it now, that I would say such harmful, such negative things for so long. And then coming to the realization that that's the life I got, because I accepted, embraced, and continued that negativity for all those years.
Aaron, there's an interesting thing that's occurring to me while we're talking here, and that is one of the reasons that we find ourselves drawn into the external world, that it's so seductive, is because we do feel good if we get a compliment. We do feel good temporarily if we get that award and we stand up on the stage and get an applause. And there is a seduction there, because it's, hey, this is how I could live. If I could just do this all the time, I could feel this good all the time. And it pulls a person into the realization or the encouragement to chase that feeling of accomplishment and appreciation from others. And it certainly happens at home. A lot of people have commented that children have been loved too much. We see this all the time in our practice. They've been loved and loved and loved, but they haven't learned, as you're pointing out so effectively, how to really love themselves and appreciate themselves on the inside, but rather they're chasing that external recognition. And there's some value to it. There's some value to changing yourself in such a way that you can have a bully pulpit to speak from. But then when you get that bully pulpit, if you arrive there without the internal feeling that you really do have something to say, you'll feel, as you mentioned a moment ago, you'll feel disingenuous. You'll feel like you really shouldn't be there and somehow you're faking it.
Very much so. I think you touched on something, excuse me, very important, that, even my own mom, I remember having conversations of her just being heartbroken. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why would you make that decision? The consequences of my actions and my choices many times didn't just hurt myself. Obviously, they hurt people around me. They hurt co-workers. They hurt employees. They hurt family and friends. And my mom, bless her soul, there was never a situation where she I don't think ever let a day go by where, she would constantly say, remember, I love you. I remember, I love you. 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 And I will always remember that. I mean, it was basically before I walked out the door every day. And, it was constantly reminding me that I was loved. Now, what I said to her is what I think she struggled with. I said, Mom, I know you said you loved me, but I did not feel love. And it's not her fault, but my mind and the concept of my mind, again, was changed and altered by my experiences, those negative experiences. So what I believed love to be, or what I would say appropriate affection, was replaced. So therefore, I had a distorted view. And today, when my mom says "I love you," I appreciate that because I feel that from her now. Because I now am able to thankfully start to see the gifts, the talents, the creativity, the uniqueness that I am to her. Because when she would say things like, you could do whatever you want, you could be whatever you want to be, I would go, okay. I would smile and I would nod and go, but now, it became a reality the day I accepted what she was saying could be true. That it was no longer just, well, that's what moms say to children. It was, will I be willing to believe this? Am I willing to accept that what she has said for many, many years, that it could be true? What would happen if I embraced that philosophy? That she says I can be whatever I want to be. What if I start saying, I will be what I want to be, and insert whatever it is that you want? John Lennon famously said that a school teacher asked him, what do you want to be in life? And, he said, I just want to be happy. And that's such a profound statement, because I don't think I think I'm very much along the same lines as Mr. Lennon, not as a talent or anything, but, I don't want to be known as just an author. I don't want to be just the radio guy. I don't want to be just the martial artist. I just want to be me. Those are just areas of expression. Those are areas of talents and gifts that I'm exploring. But through those are the realizations of my esteem, of my self-worth, because I realize how unique and special and wonderfully creative that I can be if I embrace that positive influence, if I embrace those positive suggestions, those positive affirmations.
Now, I'm going to ask you a really tough question right here, Aaron, because I'm sure some of our listeners are thinking about it. First of all, it's so much fun listening to you and listening to you talk about your transformation, because so many people need that guidance, that help, that support, that encouragement to really think more deeply about who they are and how they're experiencing the world and how they experience themselves in the world. You're really asking people to go deeper. But the question that I'd like to take a moment to discuss, and it's probably far deeper than we could talk in just a few minutes that are remaining, but how do we actually translate that wish, that drive, that desire, that feeling that we want our children to actually love themselves? Is there a recommendation coming from you for a specific technique to indeed make that happen, so that they can actually begin to change, even as children, that perception of themselves in a constructive way?
Well, I think one thing that we all can work on, and that we can all be supportive with each other as just members of the human race, is, we must create our own beliefs. I grew up believing many things that I found out later on were not true. I don't want to get into fairy tales and superheroes, but the day that I found out that Spider-Man and Superman were not real individuals, it was a tad heartbreaking for this young boy. But I had a belief, and that's what superheroes are all about. It's creating a possible belief that someone could save the day, that someone could always beat the bad guy. You know what I mean? And what's interesting to me is that we are attracted to that type of show. We are attracted to that type of, we love the good guy always wins. Yet for some reason we can't ever imagine ourselves being the good guy or the good girl or the good woman or the good child. So we have to understand, I think the greatest technique is that you have to create your own belief. Now, there's a very famous phrase in the Bible that it says, as, the faith of a mountain, the faith of a mustard seed can move a mountain. And for years, I remember reading that and seeing that phrase and thinking, that's just silly, because mustard seed is one of the smallest seeds on the planet. And you think of a mountain, I think of Mount Everest. I think of something very, very large. So when I hear that phrase, it's like, well, wait a minute. What is faith, and what is a mountain, and how does this seed and everything? And then, like I said, Dr. Parker had just hit me last year that words are seeds. And if you want to create your own belief, you must start using words appropriately, as they are. They're seeds. They will grow. Your mind is a garden. Hence the title of the book. If you want to grow the garden of your own mind, if you want to see tomatoes and peppers and sweet corn growing in the garden of your mind, if you want to see a bountiful harvest, then you have to start planting and expecting that result. I'm sure you can agree that there are so many people, and for years I did it too, where I would say, let's say we were farmers and we were talking, having some coffee down at the old coffee shop, and you'd say, hey Aaron, what are you planting this year? And I would say, oh, I'm planting asparagus. I'm planting tomatoes. And then you would go, well, why are you putting pumpkin seeds in the ground? And I'd go, because I want asparagus and I want tomatoes. And you'd say, no, but you're putting pumpkin seeds in the ground. And I'd go, I know, but I'm going to get asparagus and I'm going to get tomatoes this year. And that really comes back to what I think is the end result of what we can do to tie this in a big bow. You will reap what you sow. You will reap what you sow verbally, you will reap what you sow physically, and you will reap what you sow spiritually. It's that simple. It isn't a religious thing. This is not I guess we could say it's not even a science thing. It is just a natural law thing. We don't plant corn and get watermelon. And yet people think that they're going to be surrounded by negativity, that they're going to eat candy bars, ice cream, and sweet tea and become an Olympic athlete.
Yeah. So another way I think about this, it's so well said, Aaron. Another way I think about it is in percentages, because all of us can take a certain negative piece of ourselves and extrapolate on it and enlarge it in our minds because it's the one thing we'd like to correct. And the way to really correct that is to really look at the qualities that we do have and enlarge them and envision them even improving as we go on down the way, as opposed to focusing on the fix-it. So much of modern medicine, and one of the reasons I really like doing Core Brain Journal is so many people we talk to here recognize that we got to get out of the pathology mind. Like, here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem. And we got to come back over into what's the benefit? What have you done well? Where are you going? One of the key things I think, and I'm stimulated to think further about while you're talking, is the whole idea of the phrase from a parent, I'm proud of you. I've been very careful about using that with my own family. And because, there's a natural thing. Someone will say, hey, your son, your daughter's done very well. You must be proud of him. And I say, I take no credit. I take no credit whatsoever. Every time there's an opportunity for me to be proud, if I'm taking something from that, it has really nothing to do with me. It has to do with what they did for themselves. And so I always make that clear to my kids and the people I'm close to. Look what you did. That's to your credit. And think about that. Treasure that, because that was your effort that went into it. Yeah, I may have contributed a little bit, but what I did is not anywhere near as important as what you did with yourself.
It's a great observation.
So we're running out of time here. I was a little bit late, obviously, in this in getting together here, and I appreciate your patience with this, Aaron. But I think we really do have to wind up. I'm going to tell people here, and I'll put this in the show notes here at the end of the episode, that the download for your book, Daily Affirmations, Growing the Garden of Your Mind, Daily Affirmations, Growing the Garden of Your Mind, is going to be available at corebrainjournal.com/023 download. 023 download. And what we're going to do is have a drawing. It's going to be up for 2 weeks from when we publish this episode. So the day of publishing, just add 2 weeks to it, or we're going to close it down, and someone's going to have a chance to read that book from Aaron Wayne Duke. And thank you very much, Aaron, for spending the time with us today. It's been a very meaningful. I very much appreciate it. I didn't want to interrupt you because you were saying such important things in such a meaningfully useful way. What you're talking about is really, really important. Others who happen to be tuned into this program would appreciate the part of it that's going to stop the bullying, because the reason the bullying is going to go away is the person is not going to remain connected to the negative. The bullying may be there, but they're not going to get lost in it, and they're going to recognize negatives occur in a person's lifetime. And the degree to which you stick with them is the degree to which you remain stuck in your own life in the development of yourself as a human being. So with that, I would like to say thanks again, Aaron, for coming on board. We're going to invite you to come back again. It was so much fun talking to you.
Dr. Parker, I'm so happy and grateful again to be a part of this, and I appreciate your very kind words and your compliments. And I'm looking forward to listening to other podcasts coming from you and other broadcasts. I appreciate your work as well. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. You have a great day, Aaron. We'll talk to you soon.
Sir.
Thanks for listening to Core Brain Journal. We're working every day behind the scenes to bring you reports that connect research benches with those street trenches. Here we share the complexity of mind science because, as you know, details really do matter. One of the most pervasive, misunderstood challenges is how commonplace medications, like those written for ADHD, are used so regularly without clear guidelines. If you think you'd like more specifics, take a minute to download my 2-page PDF packed with video links and references on the absolute essentials of how to start ADHD medications. They're easily available at corebrainjournal.com/start. Thanks for listening. Do connect and stay tuned. Together we can make a difference.